What is going on, my friends? Bruce Lund, founder and director of 90 Day Sales Manager and the host of the Solopreneur Movement podcast. Every single week I come into your life to bring you content that is relevant to you as a solopreneur to help you grow in your sales and your service, your marketing, or your mindset. This is our special edition called Spend Time with Talent, specific to our mortgage friends. I brought in my good buddy, one of my best friends, Joey Abdullah. I met Joey 3 years ago when I moved out to Denver within the very first month. And I kind of joke around, man, my family tree, my Colorado family tree really does start with this guy, so I owe him a ton. I'm surprised he wasn't my first podcast, to be honest, but here we are. So better late than never. So Joey, thank you so much for coming on.
Absolutely. Thanks, Bruce, for having me. Anytime Bruce Lund invites anybody into his house and here to just share a little bit of our wealth of knowledge, just to offer it out is always impressive how he does that pretty consistently. So I'm happy to share anything I can as well.
Well, I appreciate that. And share it as you will, because I know you're a student of the game, so to speak, and you have a wealth of knowledge. So let's jump right in. What I typically like to start out with is a humble brag on yourself. So this is where, you can do a 3 to 5 minute commercial on who Joey Abdullah is, how you got in the mortgage business, celebrate your success, because you are a big time producer.
Well, appreciate that. Again, I didn't realize I'd have to do this humble brag, but Bruce always gets us prepared for it. So I served quite a few years in the United States Navy, had an excellent run at it, and just was planning my exit strategy. Was aiming to get into financial planning and kind of stumbled upon, like a lot of us do, into real estate and the mortgage world. So realized there was a lack of appropriate knowledge that was passed on to people going through the mortgage process, acquiring real estate, and I really felt that, aside from there being a void of proper information, honestly, I think there's a void of folks that think a little bit more financially and bigger picture than just taking a transaction and fulfilling that for a client. So I fell in love with it. I ended up getting my mortgage license as I transitioned out of the Navy and never looked back. Really dove deep into this industry. I akin a lot of my success, if not all of it, I just don't reinvent any wheels. I study from the best. I didn't even know what it was. I Googled a few things and stumbled upon the Scotsman's Guide. And it lists by state the top producers in your state. And I don't know exactly where they're getting all the data. It's all, I guess, public information. But I would just call as many of those top producers in the mortgage world as I could. And just about every one of them, agreed to meet me for lunch, coffee, breakfast, beer, something. And just learning from the best, honestly, there's no reason to ever reinvent any of this, and I attribute a lot of the success to that.
Well, just like we're doing this, that's what this podcast is really all about, is spending time with talented people as often as you can. Interview them, learn from them.
Absolutely.
Right? I wrote a book called Nexpert. I mean, that's really what that book was all about is, you're the next expert. Why not just interview these big time influencers, producers who have already been there and done it, internalize what you can do well, and then just go out there and do it. So I love that you said that.
Absolutely.
That's why you and I are so in direct alignment all the time, right?
Exactly. I mean, I'll bring up Bruce. The first time we met for breakfast and had a pretty gigantic real estate producer that I ended up cold calling one day, and I forget the exact verbiage of the phone call, but it was something to the effect that, look, I don't want any of your leads. I'll probably mess them up. I'm pretty much brand new to the industry, but I want to learn from you. And he took the call, he took my meeting, and he's helped me grow a ton.
Yeah.
And I recommend that wholeheartedly to anybody that's out there listening to this, whatever industry you're in. A lot of times we're looking for partnerships from different industries, different organizations, just different partnerships that are out there. And I was not looking for anything more than genuine advice. What would you do if you were in my shoes, if you were brand new, right? And I was joking with the guy and said, I don't even want any of your leads. I'm sure you're getting hit up a lot by folks like me for leads. I don't want those. I want your advice. And I think if you genuinely are asking somebody for help, people, they are wide open to helping you out.
Good humans want to help other good humans, right?
Exactly. So we got introduced by our mutual friend and had breakfast. And ironically, everything that I was doing, that I was studying from, honestly, these top producers in various coaching platforms, various companies, various industries, I kind of tailored it to my own, background and beliefs and just how I was comfortable, interacting and meeting new people and growing my business. Bruce just had a system and words for what I was already doing. And I'll never forget the breakfast. We were meeting, and literally and figuratively, my jaw was dropped. Just like everything you're saying to do, I'm doing, but you put a name to it.
Yep.
The Fight Club, the climbers, the connectors, it genuinely resonated so strong with me that we're still friends. And I had to introduce Bruce to everybody that I knew.
We're just getting started in many ways.
That's right.
So, well, as Joey was talking, we have a selling system with 10 categories of people, and Joey was already doing all these things, but now it's just intentional. With as far as why we're taking these meetings, where they fit at in our funnel and our sales cycle. That sounds so cheesy and salesy, but I mean the reality is it's we're meeting people and then we're trying to work them through a system for a reason.
100%.
Now we're just intentional with why we're doing it and how we're doing it.
Oh yeah.
Perfect.
I mean, one thing I'm just going to jump in a little bit. I feel like there's certain life cycles with how an individual goes from being a solopreneur, and as they grow, both personally and professionally, some end up branching off and opening up their own offices. Some grow a huge team. Some stay that solopreneur. And what I've seen recently, and Bruce and I have chatted about this a little bit more recently, you have to be deliberate about who you're going after and who you're working with. I think all up front, when you're working with fellow solopreneurs, you resonate very well with them. As they grow, there's a middle ground where they don't need shiny objects, they don't need new tools, they need time, right? And so that's another segment of folks that I think as they're growing, they're climbing, they just end up in a different bucket, a different layer of who you're kind of getting in front of. Further down the road, and Bruce and I, we talked about this quite a bit, as they grow into more, teams and building branches and offices, management and leadership starts taking over majority of the roles, and they almost start over.
Yep.
Right? When I can support, a handful of folks in their business doing what I'm doing now, but then they grow, they're almost growing with brand new people.
Yep.
And they need a whole new, they're feeding younger folks, right?
That's right.
And so it's just a different offering. So just continuing to stay top of mind with how those that you're working with are also growing as you grow is important.
Perfect. So let's get into, so going back to the humble brag, you're 5-6 years into it now, right? So for the first 5 years of business, that's where a lot of people either make it or you don't. Mm-hmm. And you've made it, so talk about the journey, year 1 to year 3 to year 5. If you want to say exact production numbers, you can, you don't have to, but just give people kind of an idea of how much you've grown, because I'm telling you guys right now, when it comes to, like we are really, really good friends. So many recruiters be like, hey, you got to get Joey to come into our office and stuff like that. This guy is truly a climber himself, a young hustler when it comes to that. So again, humble brag on yourself, just quickly as far as the ladder you've climbed.
Sure. So I'm always, whether this is good or bad, I'm always comparing myself to these giant producers, right? The Scotsman's Guide, I think, to me, I'm quietly competitive. I'm never going to be out there boisterous and beating my chest about trying to keep growing, but I keep chasing that next person, right? That next team, the next whatever it is that you want to chase, whether it's your own personal production, your own personal goals, doesn't really matter, but you should have something that you're chasing. Otherwise, you're going to be stagnant. Growing, I guess I'll start with the beginning phases, as you were kind of saying, and everybody's going to bring this up in some form or fashion, but you've got to create the foundation. You don't know what you don't know. You have to learn the business. That's why Bruce is super appropriate when he says he doesn't want to coach somebody on how to do their job. He wants to coach them on how to be a salesman, right? And that's truly important. Yep. He can't teach you writing contracts, negotiating rates, negotiating terms for partnership with title companies, insurance companies, and financial services offering. He can't teach you the inners and the workings of those. You need to have the foundation, and you need to have your own comfort level with those, so you can actually sell that.
Yep.
Beyond that, I think creating the foundation, obviously key, but I find just pouring into others, and again, I think a lot of folks are going to say this, but when I really dug deep into this, I would read articles for a mortgage person, and it makes sense. Go and work with as many real estate agents as you can. Go talk to as many as you can. Call as many as you can. Well, mathematically, it makes sense. If I talk to 50 real estate agents in a week, and they all talk to 10 clients, in a week, well, that's like me by proxy talking to 500 potential mortgage clients. It obviously makes sense. What I kind of had, I would think, somewhat of a great thing up front was I realized if I'm being told that, if I'm reading articles about this, then it's probably not just me that's trying to do this. So I had to figure out a better way to get in front of those folks. I'd have a better message, right? I think a lot of us show up with shiny objects. We have this tool, we have this that's free, we have, let me help you build your business with this. And honestly, it's noise. I really hate saying it, that maybe somebody in our industry, in real estate, in title, a lot of folks sell a benefit before they realize what it is that you actually need.
Yep.
So what I would study what it is that some top producing real estate agents, when I was trying to work with some of those folks, what they would actually need. And it really boils down to, they're trying to grow their business. A lot of them become climbers, a lot of them build their networks by being connectors.
Yep.
And again, I'm going to allude back to Bruce's amazing program that I'm an alumni and multiple have gone through a few times.
Yeah.
So definitely advocate for that.
Facilitator, all of it.
So the different buckets of folks that you're going to find yourself trying to help, honestly, if you pour yourself into helping these folks, it's going to pay huge dividends. Perfect example, really early on, I realized that if I could befriend and be a connector between, and I think if I'm remembering the story correctly, it was a pretty huge networking opportunity that I was invited to. There was an estate planning attorney, and they're managing minimum of $5 to $6 million of an estate. And they were holding their semi-annual, pretty large happy hour. And they were saying, hey, why don't you invite a few folks that they would like to be, they didn't say this, but essentially want to hobnob with other folks that we're also working with.
Yeah.
And the light bulb went off. I'm trying to work with these few folks. What better way than connect them to this brand new network that they likely would never have tapped into?
Yep.
They then tap into that network. Now, obviously, they have to sell themselves. They have to, fit appropriately. You have to be a good judge of, who's going to fit in those types of settings. But once that happens and their business takes off because they've now connected to 5 or 10 influential folks at one single meeting, and that builds their business for the next 3 years, they're going to take you with you. Trust me. And we were just talking about that with is it Nick Ferrizzi's book?
Keith Ferrazzi.
Keith Ferrazzi is terrible.
You always blow it.
Never Eat Alone. Really, the gist of the book, I definitely recommend reading it, but the gist of the book that I got out of it primarily was be a connector. Be known for the person that connected to other folks that then built their businesses together.
Yep. Because now you're always the person we go back to, right? And again, that's what you did for me. So I always go back to that family tree when it comes to that. So
it is, and be genuine about it, right?
For sure.
We're not lining up, a database and Rolodex of folks.
For sure.
I'm going to connect this guy so that she owes me. None of that.
Yep.
Genuine.
Yep. All right, so let's get into, there was basically 3 areas specific to, and as you guys can tell, man, Joe, the reason I love having Joey on this podcast is it's tangible things that you could go implement right away. I think there's a lot of podcasts and there's a lot of interviews out there that are 30,000 foot level, very granular, filled with a lot of platitudes. Go network. Well, no shit, right? Go do this. Or go, like, okay, no kidding. So let's get into some of the meat of how you have actually gone and grown this thing. I know early on you connected with a couple of other young hustlers that are real estate agents, right? Mm-hmm. So how did, we're not going to mention names or anything like that, but, how did you cultivate those relationships to where, I know 2 specifically that are big time producers now, 5 years later, but you got in there early because and how or why did you get in there early? Did you recognize them as young hustler, talented people? Did you just kind of stumble upon it? Was it intentional, right? Because some of the stuff is luck. You're like, we're all prepared, right? But we meet somebody like, okay, that's the person we need to hitch our wagon to, right? So just talk about the process because you got to be ready.
You do, and that's super appropriate. So there's a handful of folks that I continue to work with, and a couple have grown tremendously. It's not luck, it's you're going to eventually resonate with a handful of folks that you become an extension of their team and them of you.
Yeah.
Right? When somebody like who you're mentioning, if they refer a client, even just to kick the tires and just have a discussion with me, they know what they're going to get. They know how I'm going to sound. They know what my office looks like. They know what they're referring.
Yep. And
I'm going to make them look good, right, for that referral, whether they work with me or not. They know that I'm not going to call and bug the person. They know that I'm not going to be, anything but genuine. I'm going to give advice. I'm not going to sell. Now, obviously, there's irony there because we're all into sales, but I genuinely want to make that referring partner, even if it's somebody that has never even worked with me. You recommend somebody to me, I'm going to make you look good for the referral because I realize that is how you are building your business. And it's super important for you to have that dialed in, you need to have the immediate who you're going to with something.
Yeah.
So one thing that I want to say that I did resonate with, kind of a joke, I don't know how many times we've brought this up, but anytime that I talk to somebody, and we'll bring up the real estate agents for right now, if I ever hear plural of anything, I know they're not confident in their business. If I hear somebody say, oh, well, my lenders do this, or oh, a couple of my title reps that I work with do this, then they don't do much business. And it's a confidence. I'm not talking about certain offices might state that they've got policies that you need to have a handful of folks that you're referring to. Have no issues with that. But when you are wholeheartedly like building your business and are in a good stride, you have your go-to. You might have 3 or 4 folks that you know, but you know who's going to be good for a specific transaction.
Yeah.
Who's going to make you look good for that, right? And so I think you need to have conviction with that. So when I'm recommended to be somebody that somebody chats with, they know who they're getting, and I think you have to position yourself that way. So just identifying the climbers. Honestly, a couple of the climbers either came from working with these top producers that, hey, I might not want to work with you directly, or we want to because the numbers, but who is the next you in your office?
Yeah.
Who do I need to know in your office? They feel good about introducing you to other folks that they can help you with. The other kind of aspect of this is, you genuinely have to be ready, like you said. I think, a couple of these producers you're talking about, they're very specific niches that they work in, and I complement that niche extremely well.
Good.
And so knowing your craft and just knowing whatever it is that you're good at, I don't care what industry it is that you're in, be known for certain niches and be the expert at that and be the go-to.
So let's talk about your niche, because I know, and you've told me this, but especially early on, it is the VA stuff, right? Mm-hmm. Because obviously you come from a military background, and you want to be known as the best damn military, the best VA lender.
That's right.
That is in the world, so you own that, so I remember you telling me early on, especially when you would approach people like this, it's like, listen, I don't want all of your business. I don't want, I want this one specific thing.
Exactly.
And then I want to be so good at that one thing that you're going to keep coming back. And I think that's something a lot of people really, maybe they thought about it, but they don't really execute on that. So talk through that point.
100%. So it's super tough, right? Because we don't want to ever give up any business. We want to attract business from everywhere. However, if you really dial it in, the more specific you can get, the better, right? If I'm known for everybody that I meet, I want just your VA business. I served with the military for a long time. The reason why some of these big banks, USAA, Navy Federal, the reason why they win in the VA world is because when you call them, they're going to call you by your military rank. Hey, Sergeant so-and-so. It makes you feel good, right? Even if you've been out of the service for 20 years, it makes you feel good. You feel part of this, brotherhood. It's an immediate respect and comfort. Same thing that I'm going to offer, right? Aside from sibling rivalry, if somebody's coming from a different service, I served in the Navy, as I was mentioning, if somebody's from the Army, aside from a little sibling rivalry and, beating on each other for a couple seconds, it's immediate rapport that's built. We both know, subconsciously, I don't care when they served, but we both put the uniform on.
Yeah.
So that is important. Now, one thing I'll give up that's something that I've had trouble with, I start a lot of things, I think a lot of us salespeople do, and I don't see them through. I've had so much success with specific niches. My team is built and we're really good at VA and we're really good at condos. Well, I get excited and I say, well, if I had that much success saying, hey, I'm known for the condo business here, I'm known for VA business, why don't I just start doing, and ironically, it ends up going downward spiral because now I'm going back to let me do everything. So have a couple specific niches and just leave it at that and you will blow up.
There's riches in the niches, right? As my good buddy Alex Karagitis says a lot. That's really good advice. And honestly, I needed that advice probably a year ago because I was trying to be all things for all people, and you just can't. And that's a natural thing for you to do. You start helping one demographic, and then, that's part of being a solopreneur is you get bored easily.
Yep.
And so when you get bored easily and you start having success, it's like, well, how do I go take over this part? And how do I go do this thing? You call it shiny object. I call it monkey mind. Monkey mind is you just jump from idea to idea, branch to branch, and then really nothing ever happens because of it, versus just being so darn good in one area. Now it becomes a whole lot easier.
Let's talk about something that you've taught me quite a bit. I know that your program alludes a lot to it, but designing not the perfect client experience, but first starting with designing your perfect client.
Yeah.
And Bruce helped me out a lot with this a couple years ago now. And honestly, this has been tremendous. And again, anybody that's kind of brand new or reinventing yourself, the type of business you were doing in the past, maybe you were a builder's lender and now you're off on your own. So you're still in the same industry, but just a different way of receiving some referrals and how you're building your business. No matter what you're doing, don't take this as, well, I can't do that today, so I'm not going to listen to this advice. But when I peeled back genuinely who I loved working with, and I'm guessing a lot of people can resonate well with this, but I really dove deep into, I really like working with intelligent people that don't have time. That's probably my best niche. Now that describes quite a few folks, but currently I've dove into, I love working with attorneys. I think some folks might say that that's a tough group to work with because they nitpick paperwork, they're a little slow to get back to you, but if you really design your business to work with the type of client that you resonate the best with, again, it all fall into place. So that's what
perfect.
That's with me.
Yeah. And again, I mean, as you can tell, Joey really does build his business around the connector model, right? The business to business model, and the people that just get it. So speaking of that model, and I do want to keep this at right around 30 minutes. So let's do in the next 5 minutes. Let's go over. You introduced me to Joe. I call it Joey's funnel. So this is before I was even studying like ClickFunnels and email sequences and all that kind of stuff that's really blown up over the last few years. But you taught me, I sat down on one of your courses. Mm-hmm. You had a handful of agents that were in there and business to business people, and I came because obviously when you're an advocate of somebody, you show up. And you had this, and you broke down your own funnel. And I want you to tell it more than me, but essentially what happens is, on average, let's say a good real estate agent gets 30 leads in a month. Most lenders are going after those 1 or 2 deals that are going to get closed within those 30 days.
Exactly.
Right? And so walk through what that funnel is, because again, this is how, I love this because Joey thinks differently. And this is one of those things, and I think differently. It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when you're going to use me. That's the mindset that I have. And I don't need the immediate return. I want to more show you the value and show you that I'm not going anywhere, that I am really good, and eventually you're going to give me that business. So talk through what that funnel looks like.
Sure, and this is just adding value without blasting emails and LinkedIn requests about how I want to blow up your business and add value.
Yep.
Because that's what everybody else
That's
says.
blue ocean strategy, right? Everybody's doing that.
Everybody's doing it. You need to go after, no, it's red ocean
Red
strategy.
ocean, but yeah.
Blue ocean is where we got to go after.
Yep.
So I borrowed a lot of these ideas and we made it our own, right? Just this is how you have to build your business. Take a lot of what works with different avenues, different people, and then you tailor it into yourself. So a couple different disciplines that I kind of got this from. A big study from NAR, right, the National Association of Realtors, stated that the average real estate agent, so the top producers a little bit more, less producers a little bit less, but it doesn't matter. The numbers are the numbers. About 30 folks a real estate agent comes to contact with in a given month that has a real estate related conversation. It could be in the checkout counter at the grocery store. It could be with a next door neighbor talking about potentially improving their house and what that might help them sell their house for. Doesn't really matter what it is. 30 real estate related conversations happen every month per real estate agent across the country. When they dive that down, it ends up that about 2 of those folks out of that 30 are kind of ready, willing, and able to either buy or sell a house. And I'm looking at this research and I'm dialing it into like what I actually am seeing in the marketplace. Out of those 2, a real estate agent typically, again, numbers end up boiling down to about 1 that actually closes or turns into a transaction, a deal for that agent. Now, what happens in our industry, every industry that works off of real estate agents, inspectors, title, loan officers, just the ancillary businesses to real estate are all kind of at the bottom. And I have this joke, it's kind of like Toy Story with the claw machine, and all the aliens are trying to figure out like who's the claw going to pick. That's kind of how I saw, and this is kind of the beginning of my career, that's how I saw our industry as loan officers, of hoping that I get picked for what amounted to a lot of work to get from 30 down to that 2 to 1. And it's broken. But then when you start looking at it, that means 28 folks are in a whole separate funnel. You got to create this new funnel. Talking about funnels blowing up, I mean, the data doesn't lie, right? That's why it's working on the internet. So I kind of wanted to tap into, out of those folks, and this is what NAR studied, Out of the other 28 folks that had that real estate related conversation, about half, 50%, in the next year ended up buying or selling a house when they studied it, when NAR did. And then about half of those almost, about 45% of the half of those 28 ended up needing to do 2 transactions, sell a house and buy a house. So when I started looking at this, I started thinking, oh my God, like that's what I'm gonna go after. Agents that were, I don't wanna take the food out of the mouths out of the folks that are begging you for this business, but if I could help with this other side,
those 28.
the 28, if those turn into any deals sometime in the next few months, couple years, well, let me just have those.
Yep.
I'm not greedy, right? Take whoever you're gonna work with over here, and it's just a mindset, right? However you wanna do that, but I was just thinking a little bit differently. And I think that's what you need to do, because if somebody says, I've only worked with a few lenders, right, the plural of my joke, you can't let that knock you down of, well, better not have it. Hey, just send me all your first-time home buyers. Just send me all your condos. Send me all your VA. Send me, be known for something, or that's fine. I don't want to stop this business happening over here. Let's talk about this lost business, because you can almost guarantee there's a ton in that.
I love it, man. I love it. And I mean, again, that's how you start to think differently about your business as a solopreneur. And because a lot of people come to me and like, well, you've never sold real estate, you never sold mortgage, you never done da-da-da. And it's like, yeah, but I moved to a brand new city not knowing anybody. And now look at us consistently growing and getting around influencers like Joey of the world, because we see it a little bit differently.
Oh, yeah.
We definitely have to see it. And we touched on the blue ocean versus the red ocean. There's a book called Blue Ocean Strategy. Guys, you want to go swim where the blue ocean is, because you're by yourself, right? It's not shark-infested waters. And so when everybody's calling on top producers as a real estate agent, it's not saying that you don't, but you have to come at it from a different way, which is like you're saying, that Joey funnel, the 28, like, hey, listen, I don't want the 1 or 2 that you're going to feed your lender. I want the 28 that I can help maybe get their credit score up. I can help do this. I can help do that on your behalf to make you, like you said earlier, look really good in that process. So we could talk all day about this stuff, and I'm definitely going to have Joey on in an additional podcast, and I'm excited about having him inside of our Solopreneur 365 and our private Facebook groups, and even some of this content that will live inside of there. We're going to speak together. There's a lot of stuff that he and I are going to do together. It's only taken about 3 years now, so really excited about that. And most importantly, man, just thanks for being a good buddy. I mean, at the end of the day, I owe you a ton as far as the people that, like I said, man, guys, it's no BS. It really is like Joey's family tree when it comes to me moving here and talking about like preparation, all that kind of stuff. Like, you think you can make it and you hope you're going to make it, but then you meet people like you that truly help get in the boat every single day, that make sure that you're going to make it, right? And those are the people, whether it's 50 people like that or 100, whatever that number is, you know, spend the time with the people who appreciate you the most, right? 80-20 rule. Spend 80% of your time with the 20% who deserve it. Do the things that you enjoy with the people that you enjoy doing them with. And unfortunately, now that I travel as much, and I know you're doing big things too, we don't get to do this as much, which is part of that deal. You know, it's part of the growth model, but it really does make you appreciate those folks even more when you do spend time like this. So that's my long way to say thank you.
Appreciate it.
That's my long way. How can people find out more about Joey Abdullah and connect with you? Put you on the spot there.
You did.
LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, email.
Joey Abdullah.
I don't want to give away your cell phone number, but
LinkedIn's always easy, and I mean, you can always Google search and everything. So.
Okay, perfect. Well, thank you guys. Until the next time, and again, thanks to Joey for coming in here and breaking down how he's really built his business over the past 5 years.